Unit 3. Brief History of Western Metaphysics. Objectives. The unit is designed to survey or measure developments in Western metaphysics, highlight the relevant metaphysical reflections, enable the students to think for themselves by reflecting on these insights. 3.1 Introduction. Western metaphysics has the most diverse and complicated development among the three traditions: Indian, Chinese, and Western. In the West one system grew out of another as development, or as Christian, or as both, because of the Greek legacy of the thought rooted in purely rational and human approach to various problems. Every metaphysicians in the West develop a somewhat distinct standpoint and system, thereby contributing to the total understanding of reality. Like every other metaphysical traditions in the world, Greek metaphysics grew out of religion. This development is generally divided into two periods: the pre-Socratic and the post-Socratic. There are some scholars who consider the former period as more important, for it was more scientific in that the philosophers adapted a kind of a realistic or even of a materialistic view of reality, treating the source of reality as water, air, fire, atoms, etc., and thus laid the foundations of science and metaphysics. Will the latter period introduced much confusions into thought by mixing the ethical and religious problems with the scientific and metaphysical. Na କହୁଛି ସେତି ପଛରେ metaphysical began undoubtedly trace the early travels of sound metaphysics in Heraclitus, a prominent pre-Socratic. 3.2 Survey of Major Metaphysics. Heraclitus. For Heraclitus, the fundamental thought is that the universe is in a state of the caseless change. One can stepwise into the same river, for other waters are ever flowing on the signalize the notions of incessant activity. Heraclitus chooses the ever-living fire, which is the vital principles in the originism and the essence of the soul as his first principles. The fire of Healthius is not the abiding substratum of of the predecessors, but that which is constantly being transformed into other things. It changes into water and then into earth, and the earth changes back again into water and fire. Things seem to be permanent because we do not perceive the incessant moments in them. In them, everything is changed into its opposite, and everything therefore is a union of opposites. Nothing remains permanent by virtue of its qualities. Everything both is and is not. This view is opposed by Parmenides, who interprets reality to be permanent without any change. Perma- Parmenides, c. 550 BCE. Parmenides, a metaphysician of the Eleatic school, challenges Heraclitus' teaching that everything changes, that fire becomes water, and water earth, and earth fire. That things first are and are not. How can a thing both be and not be? How can anyone how can anyone think such a contradiction to say that it is that it can it so it to say that something it and something is not, or if being has that how some become is must either have come from non being or from being, if from non being it has come from nothing, which is impossible. If from being, then it has come some from itself and is identical with itself, and thus has always been. Then it is evident that from being only being can come that whatever is always has been and always will be, that everything remains what is. It is hence that can be only an internal unchangeable being, or change inconceivable, and the world of sense is an illusion. These diametrically opposed views of Hilarious and Parmenides find a sort of reconciliations in Plato, for whom particulars may come and go, but the idea of form goes on forever. Humans may come and go, but the human type is eternal. Plato, the idea of form confronts or holds together essential qualities common to many particulars. The essence of thing consists in their universal forms. The ideas or forms are not mere thoughts in the minds of humans, or even in the mind of God. The divine thought is itself directed towards them. Plato conceives them as existing in and for themselves, possessing substantiality, that is the substances, real substantial forms of from the original eternal transcendence, archetypes of things existing prior to things and apart from them, and thus union influenced by the changes, by the changes to which they are subject. The particular objects of perceptions are imperfect copies of reflections of the eternal patterns. Particulars may come and go, but the idea or forms goes and forever. Humans may comes and go, but the human types is eternal. The human mind is meant for the world of ideas, and it transcends sense reality towards the supernatural. For Aristotle, metaphysics is not only the science of the supernatural, but of the sensible, to insofar as the sensible is. Aristotle 384. Aristotle himself never called metaphysics by that name, which was conferred by later thinkers. Aristotle called metaphysics by at least three different names: Sophia, Protea, Philosophia, and Theologia, wisdom, first philosophy and theology. Nonetheless, a subsequent use of the title metaphysics makes it reasonable to suppose that what we call metaphysics is substantially the sort of thing done in that treatise. Sophia is explained as the knowledge concerning the most noble of things. It is a kind of theoretical knowledge of necessary and eternal being both intuitive and inferential are the wing of this metaphysics. There is discussions about the kinds of the stages of knowledge. Human knowledge originates from sensation and develops gradually into memory, experience, and art. In his development, Sophia is the highest scientific knowledge and deals with the experience the and art. In this development, Sophia is the highest scientific knowledge and deals with the principles of causes of thing. A person who is called Sophia possesses the following characteristics. So knows everything, thought though not in detail the most difficult things, what is most exact, what best explains how things happen things for their own sake, and for what end everything is done. Also, the objects of Sophia principles and causes, the good and the end, are its spatial form. Its knowledge for its own sake, without any utilitarian interest. It is knowledge suitable for those who live free and independent lives. Such knowledge is more suitable for the gods than the humankind. It is divine on account of two reasons. First, God is the cause of everything and is the first principles with which this science is concerned. Second, either God alone or God above all. can have such knowledge that is God is both object of subject of Sophia. Sophia just mentioned our means philosophy proper rather than science in general. The already enumerated characteristics seems to be common to all philosophical sciences. However, from the last maintenance divine character of each subject and subject, Sophia is limited to the first philosophy for him. For metaphysics is the first philosophy that deals with the unmoved mover. The unmoved mover is metaphysics is the first philosophy that deals with the unmoved mover. The unmoved mover is the first being or first substance, as the unmoved mover is the first of that philosophy which deals with this kind of being is the first philosophy, since the first being is God. What is studied in the first philosophy, it is also called theology. In other words, according to Aristotle, metaphysics is the first philosophy, and the science of being is as being. It is the science of substance, especially of the first substance of the first cause, which is an immovable, eternal, independent, and the without matter that God. The first philosophy or ontology is at the same time theology, the object metaphysics is all things visible and invisible. In investigations, all beings insofar as they are begins with the totality of beings and all particular domains of beings, and Aristotelian numbering of God among the items characterized is overcome by Augustine, who gives God the first place in his metaphysics. Augustine dominant in Augustine's thinking in the Neoplatonic conceptions of the absoluteness and majesty of God and the insignificance of his creatures. God is an eternal and transcendent being, all powerful, all good, all wise, absolute unity, absolute intelligence, absolute will, and thus absolute spirit. He is absolutely free and holy, and can't will in him willing and the doing are one. What he wills is done without any intermediary. His intelligence includes all ideas or forms of things. God created the world out of nothing. His creation is a continuous creations creator, continuous as it is absolutely and continuously dependent on him. The God centered metaphysics of Augustine, turning metaphysics into theology, becomes a God oriented metaphysics. H.T. Thomas Aquinas, for whom every being is analogous. Aquinas 1225 to 1274. In the introduction to this commentary on Aristotle's metaphysics, he sum up three aspects of metaphysics. Metaphysics is the science of God. Theology, insofar as it considers God and other super beings, or the pure spirits. It is metaphysics insofar as it investigates beings alone and all belongs to being as being at it is first philosophy insofar as it looks for the first causes of all things. Aquinas insisted that the immediate object of metaphysics is as being unlike Francis Bacon, for whom metaphysics is neither the study of being as being nor a contemplations of unmoving final causes, but a study of the most general principle or laws or forms of the material world, undertaken in view of a practical and Francis Bacon from 1561 to 1626. According to Bacon, the divisions of philosophy are like the branches of a tree which are united in a common trunk. This common trunk of philosophy is one universal science known as first philosophy, which compasses fundamental axioms and notions like possible and impossible, possible being and non-being, etc. Metaphysics as part of natural philosophy must be distinguished with from both first philosophy and natural theology. Physics, the three subspecies transient and material causes, metaphysics of formal and final causes. As a result, metaphysics turned into a formal discipline of laws of principles. Such a metaphysics becomes a system of pure conceptual knowledge about any trait of empirical influence in Christian Wolff. Christian Wolff, 1679 to 1754, he equated metaphysics with theoretical philosophy. He distinguished between general metaphysics and specialized metaphysics. The former, also called ontology, is the basic philosophical discipline which in investigations being is being or Wolff being is no longer in universal principle but only an abstract general concept, a sum of Wolff's follows held that the object of metaphysics is being is general or immaterial beings. Other considered fit metaphysics as the science of the first principles of our knowledge of form, which we derive the principles of all other science. To this latter group belonged Immanuel Kant's teacher Martin Contagion and also Alexander Baumgarten, whose whose textbook Kant used for many years in his teaching of metaphysics. If we take into account the fact that the Kant's criticism of metaphysics is directed against Baumgarten or relativistic metaphysics, we can avoid the error of taking Kant's critique to be absolute denial of metaphysics. Emmanuel Kant, 1724 to 1800, metaphysics for him is the inquiry into God's existence and nature, human freedom and minority method of inquiry, and rationalistic or critical inquiry into the equality of reason. Metaphysics express a rational need of natural dispositions of the human mind. It is also aims at extending our knowledge of reality to the questions such as existence of God, freedom of human and morality of soul. But if a science of metaphysics is ever to exist, it must consist of synthetic a priori propositions. So Kant's first questions about metaphysics is how is metaphysics as natural and dispositions possible. Kant's second questions and the more important one of the how is metaphysics is see science possible. It does not yet exist as science since the questions also implies whether it is possible as science. Possible as science. The answers of both questions is given by Kant in his critique of pure reason. Pure reason Kant's questions how is metaphysics as science possible leads to the questions the possibility of universal and necessary knowledge is struggling with this questions can went beyond both of universal and necessary knowledge is struggling with these questions. Kant went beyond both relationalism and empiricism. According to Kant, knowledge is to be understood from the previous conditions of a possibility. Thus, we may turn our attentions away from the object to the priori conditions of our knowledge of it. This is the turn to the transitional method for Kant. It means the passage from the conditions to the conditions, from the object of the experience to the subject of pure reasons, which determines this object. Thus, metaphysics turns into transcendental philosophy. Kant, without being explicitly conscious of it, demonstrated that metaphysics is impossible without this without this return to being secondary or brought about the transcendental turn of philosophical thinking. This transcendental thinking began to take shape in feature for whom knowledge is no more a passive state of reason affected by the thing in itself, but the self-determinations of the ego, which sets up the non-ego only for its performance of practical conduct. John Gottlieb Fichte, 1762 to 1814, German idealism. After Kant ridiculed metaphysics. Metaphysics was equated with the Metic metaphysics, which was considered to be an uncritical reflections of the thing in itself and in its and is It was constructed with the transcendental philosophy of critical idealism as an example for the. It was constructed with the transcendental philosophy of critical idealism as an example for the transcendental philosophy of the critical idealism. Fichte introduced the Wissen Hapselier, the doctrine of science as a basic science whose content is the pure knowledge of the reason, serving as the foundations of all the science, providing them with their basic principles. All the pages early philosophy was subjective idealism in its purest form. This form is thought soon processed beyond it when is realized that thinking presupposes being an absolute being as conditions of finite reasons. Thus, once again, he was close to the idea for metaphysics in the tradition sense further established by excelling in his view of the self-identity of spirit and nature in place of supremacy of practical reasons and ego of Friedrich von Schelling 1775 to 1854. Schelling advanced beyond feature for selling for ego it transcends itself and becomes aware of the absolute which lies before any duality and of objective and subjective of real and ideal and thus the absolute which lies before any duality of object and subjective of real and ideal and thus moved towards subjective idealism. He distinguishes between negative and positive philosophy, which are the aspects of the transcendental philosophy. In this sense, transcendental philosophy is metaphysics for scaling. Negative philosophy stood for pure a priori science of reason whose validity is only relative. Positive philosophy advances towards a doctrine of being which compasses also a doctrine of God in which it has its foundation. Scaling has thus restored its former unity to metaphysics. However, the metaphysics of scaling was devoid of systematic coherence, which was left to Hegel to achieve. George William Friedrich Hegel, 1770 to 1831. For Hegel, being is indeterminate. Which is indeterminate is that which is not determinate. For that which is not determinate is that which is not. That which is not is non-being. Hence, non that which is not determinate is that which is not. That which is not is non-being. Hence non-being is at the heart of being. Hence there is a dialectic thesis and antithesis as the heart or core of being itself or pure being is of all notions the most abstract, the most core of being itself or pure being or is of all notions of the most abstract, the most universal, hence the most empty content. It does not mean any particular being. It is without universal, hence the most empty of contents. It does not mean any particular being. It is without any future. It is absolutely indeterminate. It is not this, not that, not anything. It is that which is. It is not which is in some way nothing or non-being is the opposite of being. Will being in the latter, non-being is content in being. It is deduced from being and non-being are opposed yet identical. Being and non-being are apparently a contradictory terms, and so are instances of the extreme form of opposition. Yet they are identical, for non-being is deduced from being, and it could not have would have been deduced from being if non-being was not there in it, and in at least implicitly. Again, being and non-being are empty and vacant, and in this sense too they are identical, since being and non-being are identical. Being passes into non-being, and non-being passes into being. For the thought of non-being is the thought of emptiness, and emptiness is what pure being is this the passing or passes for being to nothing or non-being, and from nothing to being is not the focal point of Husserl, but consequences. Husserl's basic ideas is that the consequence is directed towards subjects. Almost all mental content is directed, and thus directedness is a feature unique to consciousness. This directness of the consciousness towards its object is called internationally. Edmund Husserl, 1859 to 1938. Husserl's fundamental position is something like this: for each of us, there is one indubitable fact, our own consequence awareness. This is the starting point to build our knowledge of reality. No, on rock solid foundations. Up to this point, he is in agreement with the Descartes. However, unlike Descartes, he holds that as soon as we analyze our consequence awareness, we discover this is always aware from something. Consequences has to be consequences of something. It can't just al- always aware of something. Consequences has to be consequences of something. It can just exist by itself as an objectless state of mind. Direct experience includes not only material object but a number of abstract entities such as our own thoughts, pains, emotions, memories, music, mathematics, and a host of other things. They are investigated exclusively as contents of and consequences independent of their existential status, which is bracketed all the same on account of these phenomenological reductions which brackets existence. Husserl locked himself in transcendental idealism. He was unable to clear Kant's hurdles and reach reality. Consequently, he could not discover the way to metaphysics or metaphysical ontology as done by other metaphysics like Whitehead. Alfred North Whitehead, 1861 to 1947. Whitehead made a fundamental distinction in his metaphysics between actual entities, actual occasions, the eternal objects. The eternal objects are the possibilities of all those events which actually occur. They are the forms of things. A form is a society of actual entities. For instance, a piece of chalk is a society of actual entities. It retains its forms of a chalk so long as it is not broken off into its pieces. The eternal objects have the possibilities of getting fused with different form of objects. They are neither things nor causes, but pure potentialities for the specific determinations of actual entities. They are the same for all actual entities. They increase the actual entities as they are determinants. They have a universality as the same of belongs to different actual entities. The entities, the eternal forms of ingredients of the actual forms of in instance all types of tables have the same common essence of tableness. This common essence constitutes the eternal objects of all types of tables. According to Bergson, being is not only independent or being known but becoming too. Being is becoming. Henry Bergson, 1859 to 1941. Henry Bergson, 1859 to 1941 is the most important exponent of perpetual becoming in modern times. Like Helictus, he is an anti-intellectualist. According to Bergson, everything is a continuous flux of becoming and changing without any underlying subject which becomes and changes. Change is the whole of reality. Everything changes, but there is no things which changes everything is in movement, but there are no thing which moves everything is in a state of continuous progress. But there is no thing that progress everything is in a process of evolutions. But there is no thing that evolves. As Bergson says, a movement is reality itself, and mobility is always only apparent or relatives. There are no things, there are only actions. Movement is creative ablations. This case less evolutionary movement is the result of a double factor matter and the vital impulse. Alien vital, they have existence from the beginning. Every theory, no matter how no ingenious collapses once the fundamental principles of logical thinking are discarded. Heidegger in answers of the possibility of such a collapse. Martin Heidegger, 1889 to 1976. Phenomenon does not show itself but remains hidden as the meaning and ground of what shows itself. It calls for a method which makes us see what is normally hidden and forgotten. Now, logos, the second component of the word phenomenology, is a method of making see what is otherwise concealed, of taking the hidden out of its heading and of directing it is unhidden. That is a truth. Or Lathia, thus phenomenology is the method of uncovering the hiding or interpretations of astrologizing the primary phenomenon which needs uncovering is being the victim of our usual forgetfulness of the ontological difference between being and beings. For Heidegger, the science of beings of ontology is possible only as phenomenology. Phenomenology is ontology and vice versa. Philosophy itself is nothing but universal phenomenological ontological based on the hermeneutics of human being Dacian, which by implications makes phenomenology the one and only ontological method. This view of Heidegger stand in contrast to the of the scholastics and the neo scholastics like Martian, Jacques Martian, 1880 to 1973. For Martian, for the object of metaphysics is being as such ends in quantum ends. It is not being clothed or embodied in the sensible coidity, the essence of nature of sensible things, but being distanced and isolated insofar as being can be taken in abstractions from more particularized object. It is being disengaged from the sensible cordially viewed as such and set apart in its pure intellectual values. Being as such is distinct from particularized being. Particularized being is being which is studied by the diverse science of nature. It is the sensibles and mobile beings which are either the object of the philosophy of nature or of the other empirical sciences. Particularized being marks and involves the metaphysical notions of being. The metaphysical notions of being is not disengaged from the particularized being, but is present in it in a distinguished and invisible manner. All our notions and concepts are resolved in the metaphysical notions of being. It is the first of all our notions of which all the rest and determinations. Gilson approached the same notions of being a form Aquinas primacy of the act of being. Etienne Gilson, 1884 to 1978. Being essay is the very act which turns a possibles into being. Essence is not the highest perfections in the order of being, but essay act of being. However, essence is an element of finite being of absolute necessary of very high nobility, as is essence is the possibility of an actual being. endowed with its own finite degree of perfections. Finite being is also act and perfections. The world of finite beings is made possible by the very essence of the things which their own essence makes to be true beings. In this way, everything is called a being because of its essence. Will everything is also called a thing on account of essence of cohesivity. However, according to Machiel, in every knowledge of the finite, the human intellect moves from the infinite to the infinite on account of its dynamism known as intellectual dynamism. Joseph Marshall, 1978 to 1944. According to the Marshall, the intellect of dynamic and activity is a faculty in the quest of its interaction, that is assimilations with being which is pure and simple, supremely one without limitations, without distinctions of essence and existence, and of possibility and reality, tending towards the infinite, is not only fully satisfied by any finite object. However, to the extent that a finite object participates in the infinite, the intellect finds in the object a partial goals for its period affirms it, hence it categorical and makes a judgment of reality. Hence, truth is found in judgment. Judgment is a synthesis through connections in the units of subject in the inherence and a form. Judgment is not only a synthesis but an act of affirmation. Affirmations to the affirmations is the essential elements of the judgment, for it makes the synthesis which has been affected into the object. It endows to it with the truth by relating it to the absolute being. The applications of dynamism to the refutations of Kant had already been made by Blondel. It was the aim of actions of Blondel to overcome the phenomenalism of Kant by departing from the presuppositions of immentalism. Hence the intellectual dynamism of Marshall owes much to the influence of Blondel. Marriage Blondel, 1861 to 1949. For Blondel action is a complex term that stands for the entire human experience, conceived within the framework of humans' basic needs and tendencies. It is the activity of whole human, the synthesis of thought, will, and being itself, the greater and the noble humans activity. The greater and the noble is one's actions. Action is the most universal and unavoidable fact in human life. It is also personal obligations that may demand a hard choice, a sacrifice, and even death. Suicide itself is an act is essentially an act of the will. This is Blondel message to his contemporaries. Human has a fundamental tendency towards the infinite. For long run, the most fundamental tendency is the pure desire to know. Bernard Lonergan, 1904-1984. Being then is the objective of the pure desire to know. The desire, the know, means the dynamic originations manifested in questions of intelligence and reflections. It is neither the verbal utterance nor the conceptual formulations of questions, nor any insight, nor thought, nor judgment. It moves human to seek, understand, and then it prevents one from being merely content with one's own. Human seek, understand, and then it prevents only from the being merely content with one's own imperfect subject personal experience. It moves human to reflect, to seek the unconditions, and to grant unqualified assent only to the unconditional, and thus one is prevented from being content with herstory are legend that are unverified and untested. This desire is pure as it differs radically from the other desires, as it completes assent to the unconditional, and as it is a cool, disinterested disinterested and detached desire. It is a desire to know. The objective of the pure desire is the content of knowing rather than the act of knowing. However, the desire itself is not a knowing, hence it is a range. It is not the same as the range of knowing. At first, in each individual, the pure desire is a dynamic orientation to a totally unknown, but when the knowledge grows, the objective becomes more and more known. In this way, the objective includes all that is known and all that is determined. Being is also what is to be known by the totality of true judgments insofar as the desire to know goes beyond actual knowledge. Thus, being is all inclusive. It is concrete and universal, hence it is the totality of correct judgment that equates with the concrete universe that is being, which according to Rahner, it is the being of being's entity. Karl Rahner 1904 to 1984. Being is grasped only as the act of existence of being. Being is at once separate and united to a receptive subject that is distinct from it. In other words, in the apprenticeship graphs being only through the concept of a specific sensibly presented and particular being in the same say. Every being is apprehended in the pre-apprehension of the unlimited scope of all the possible the object of thought. This means that being is apprehended all at the moment when it finds itself with the totality of its possible object. This totality is the one original ground of a determinations of possible of objects of beings. Rahner recognized the objectivity of being as distinctions from human, that is being in general is distinctions from human being. The objectivity of being is conditions by the pre-apprehensions human knows about being in general. In one's active dealings with this world, one knows about its insofar as such knowledge is the conditions or horizons of objective conceptual knowing. Knowledge of material beings in the knowledge of the world. Human pre-apprehensions being in its totality through questions for it through questions is the starting point of metaphysics. Emeric Correth, 1991 to 2006. The horizons of our questioning is the unconditions. The unconditions is expressed in the world is being. Here being is the unconditions conditions of all questioning. It is absolutely necessary. It is always unnecessarily supposed, and the conditions of every questions. It is co-affirmed in the very act of questioning. Otherwise, we can't even ask a question. If the horizon of one questions of knowing is limited, then our knowledge can't be absolute in a limited horizon. We can't ask about the ultimate absolute or unconditioned point of view. Hence, the horizon must be unlimited to penetrate into the intensively deep set core of being. We must reach up extremely wider strength being that which constitutes the ultimate unconditioned reality of things is being, and that which affects absolutely everything without any limitations is also being. Therefore, being is the ultimate reality, both intensively and extensively. The horizons of being within which we ask the questions as questions is unlimited.